All right, let's talk a bit about more wholesome stuff now. So I'm gonna get both of you to talk about each other now. But basically, I want Jimbo to talk about what he
You leave
thinks.
the room.
Should have been done in private.
Do you need a moment?
I want Jimbo to talk about what he sees as a strength in Drew as a coach, and I want Drew to talk about what he thinks Jimbo's strength as a coach is. I'm wondering if it's similar or if it's different. We'll start with Drew.
What's your just there?
What's it coming out? So I just had a nosebleed before. Sorry about that. I'm incessantly playing with my nostrils.
I reckon I would have thought our strengths would be pretty similar. I've now moved to Jimbo. He's now coaching me, and I've been with him now for what, 8 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think about 8 weeks. But then obviously I've known him for a lot longer than that. But I feel, and I felt this before he started coaching me, and I still feel it now, 8 weeks in, that his strongest attribute as a coach is his ability to connect with the athlete. And you would think, well, how has he got such a good ability to connect with the athlete when he never really had a background in running? But somehow he's still able to form a really good personal connection with who he's talking to. He always says, be in the moment. So maybe it's something to do with that. I feel like whenever you're talking to Jimbo about your running or what you want to do, he's really honestly listening, and he's always partaking in the conversation and thinking hard about what he can do to help you achieve what you want to do. And not even just in running, it's more just in well, I was going to say in life, but in what you're doing with your career, what path you're setting your life up in. Jimbo's always there to help you go in the direction you want to go in. And if it's in running, great, he'll obviously have more of an expertise in that, but then he'll probably also help you with advice in what sort of career path you want to take, or what uni degree you want to take, or if you want to go overseas, or
relationships.
Or in relationships. But I feel that going back to what I said, I feel without a doubt, and obviously as many other strengths, like Jimbo's knowledge is second to none, but and as Jimbo and I always say, you can know every single detail about running in the world, but unless you have this very key attribute of being able to connect with the athlete and talk to the athlete and be a personable person, it doesn't matter how much information you know. And I definitely feel that we've now got to know, well, we already knew each other pretty well, but I feel like we've got to know each other pretty well, more well these last 8 weeks. And I guess that's due to what I think his greatest strength is, and that's just listening and being with the athlete.
I want to add one more thing as well. I think
Thanks, Drew.
one extra thing that might put Jimbo apart from other people is his like teaching background as well. Because I wouldn't say every athletics coach in the industry has done teaching in the past as well, right? So I think that kind of adds a bit more to that arsenal that Jimbo has, which is pretty awesome because he has the knowledge of the sport and the teaching background, and that's just insane.
Yeah, 100%. I reckon the teaching background, without a doubt, uh, helps him coaching. Like I've found with my own coaching, how I coach at the high school, I've actually learned a lot of the methods I coach with from some of my teachers at school. I would definitely say his teaching background just helps with the communication. A coach and a teacher, they're pretty similar. It's just one, I guess, is telling you to do a session, the other one's telling you how to write an English essay. If you don't want to be in the English classroom, if the teacher's not entertaining and you don't want to be there, how's the student going to learn? It's the same thing if you're at the track. If you don't want to be there and the coach isn't entertaining you or keeping you engaged in the session, well, how good your session really going to be? I mean, a teacher and a coach, I would say they're pretty similar.
I would just, and like once again, anecdotally, a lot of the better coaches around Australia do have teaching backgrounds. So, you know, if you look at, like, I mean, Adam Diddick, you know, he's a chalky by background. Lindsay Watson, you know, he's a TAFE teacher, and I like that's just a couple just quick off the top of my head. But even Gary Bourne, you know, he's a physics lecturer up in Queensland, so he understands how to captivate an audience. But the most important thing I think about the education side of it, it is like what Drew said. There's a process to it. So, and I think because I've always been a process-oriented person, so that set where do we want to go with what we're doing this year or next year, or you know, within an Olympiad, and then come back to being in the present, and now we need to execute right here and now. Now, I know a lot of other coaches might operate like that, but a lot of them don't. I think some of them will either get caught up too much here in the now, and then they forget that you don't have to do everything because we're going there. Yeah, we're going there. So like we just got to, but yeah. So that was nice of Drew to say all that. And I'd say from my perspective of Drew's coaching, we had a real good conversation years ago, sitting underneath the scoreboard at Homebush at a particular event. I was so impressed with Drew's ability to actually articulate his process of coaching. So at the time, he was probably only 19, maybe 20 years of age, and he hadn't long been coaching. But because he has had a number of coaches himself, and you know, some people might think that he goes from one to the other, and we've laughed about that. But it's not really, because he and Kurt are always in search of how do they get better. So how do you get better? Well, sometimes you've actually got to do things differently. You can't just keep doing the same. So in having a number of coaches, whether it be in triathlon or in athletics, I think Drew's strength is that he can draw upon that. So it's not just his own experience. And I think a lot of elite coaches who were elite athletes, once again, lose that. They understand the process, but it becomes too constricted, and it becomes too much of, this is how I did it, this is how my coach did it with me, so I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to repeat that because it worked, so we're just going to keep doing it. Whereas I think Drew already, as a young coach, has already understood that it's good to bring ideas in from everywhere and not just rely on. And as a young person, his communication skills are phenomenal, and he actually commands respect. So he does train sometimes with his squad, but before we'd actually started coaching, our squads had already started doing some sessions together. And I just was really impressed with how authoritative he is. Because as a younger person, when you're coaching people that are maybe only 4 years younger than you can't just expect respect. And I think with a lot of these young guys that are year 10, year 11 and 12, that when Drewy says jump, they say how high. So they're not scared of him, but they're very respectful of his opinions. And when he says, let's get stuff done, and he actually even scared me one day when we were crossing the road at Centennial Park. He raised his voice, and I went, whoa, wow, what was that? So, and that's it. He does. He commands respect, and he's got a lot of very good attributes for a young coach, which is now helping his running as well. So.